Hello, everyone, and welcome to Business and Beyond's Feature Friday with Tanya Bartolini. I have a great guest with us today, Kelly St. Clair. Say hi.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you for having me.
oh, anytime. So, Ms. Kelly St. Clair is an attorney licensed in both Virginia and Florida with more than 30 years experience in all aspects of juvenile and family law.
I
She is
think she just called me old, but we're going to skip over that
that is not old, that is experience
part. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
and well versed,
Okay.
right? You started when you were 5. That's
It,
okay.
yes, exactly.
And Kelly is a Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator, a guardian ad litem, and a qualified parenting coordinator for Florida Circuit Courts numbers 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, and 18. She has been focusing on family and children for most of her legal career and uses this experience both as a sole mediator and a co-mediator. And in all areas of family law, she has found success using a male-female pair of co-mediators to bring the different perspectives to each mediation, which I love that because I think we all need both aspects of the masculine and feminine, right? So she believes, as do I, that the mediation process is a wonderful way for people to take control of their own cases and make the decisions rather than allow the court or the judge to make it for them. And it's also a far less expensive way to resolve family law issues or any law issues for that matter. And the same holds true for cases needing a parenting coordinator. And having represented hundreds of parents and children in hearings and trials for parental responsibility, which is also called custody, and time sharing, which is also called visitation, Kelly believes that parents can learn to communicate and co-parent effectively to make decisions about their family without the time, expense, and uncertainty of taking every issue back to the court. And when the parents can't, make a decision together, Kelly is also available to work as a guardian ad litem to advance the interests of the children. She has been a guardian ad litem for also over 30 years and can help assist families and the courts in making sure that the interests of the children are at the forefront of every family law decision. As adults, we have the responsibility of making sure that we're okay, we can stand up for ourselves, but children do not have that luxury. And so it's amazing to have someone that can actually sit there and look at their best interests, because when people are getting divorced, their emotions are heightened, they don't see the full picture, and their judgment is clouded. So it's nice to have someone who will actually make sure that the kids' best interests are at the forefront. Um, since she's been practicing, she has served as a substitute judge for about 8 years. And she was a producer and board member for a professional theater in Richmond. And one thing that I found very interesting about you, Kelly, is that that family is so ingrained and so important to you that you relocated yourself, your daughter, and your parents to Florida just to follow your other daughter, son-in-law, and their kids. So I love that family is really at the center and heart of everything that you do. And so welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Again. So can you please give us a 90-second overview of your business and why you got into it?
Sure. 90 seconds. I don't know that I've ever
Well,
done anything
or
in
so,
90
yes.
seconds. So I spent, as you said, many, many years in Virginia as a family law attorney representing parents in divorces, custody hearings, things like that. Also worked as a Supreme Court certified guardian ad litem in Virginia for all those years. And I realized as I went through things that it was very difficult for me to take off my guardian ad litem hat when I was representing a parent because I still always wanted to do what was best for a child. And I got to the point where I wasn't able to do that, that I couldn't know, I'd have to withdraw from cases because I couldn't zealously represent a client if I thought the client was asking for something that wasn't best for a child. It's just not in me. And so when I moved down to Florida, yes, to follow my daughter and granddaughter and son-in-law, um, I took the bar in Florida, so I'm licensed in both states. I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do? And I realized that I didn't want to do litigation anymore. I didn't want to do anything representing parents because adults have their own choices. They make their own decisions, and rightly or wrongly, that's on them. But I wanted to be able to help families as a whole and children navigate the transitions that are brought on by separations, divorces, and things like that. And so I was able to take my experience as guardian ad litem for all those years and then, take some extra training. And now I can kind of morph all that together. So mediation and parenting coordination, guardian ad litem, each one is unique and it has its own pros and cons. But the thing I like about them is all of them are focused on the family, and I can do it from a child perspective to assist a family in making that transition. So that's how I spend my time. As you say, family matters to me more than anything. And so I was able to do that and be able to help families and kids. And so that's worth getting out of bed every morning.
So unlike representing each parent and zealously fighting for their rights or what they're entitled to without any other, like putting on your, what are those called? Your blinders.
Blinders. Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is what my client needs. You're actually looking at the full family dynamic and trying to find what's best for everybody involved. Is that
Right. And finding a way, the hardest part is finding a way in each case to get to the why. I ask why a lot. I don't just care what you want. I want to know why you want that because it's only in knowing the why that we get to the truth. And when you get to the truth, that's when you can get creative and try to work on solutions that are best for everybody or that work for everybody. If you just stick with the what, well, I want this, well, I want this, you're never going to get there. But I want this because of this. Oh, well, I want this because of this. And then you realize that you can take their thises and you can find a solution that works for everybody. And so that's one of the things that I always focus on is okay, now tell me why. Okay, tell me more, tell me why. And the getting to that, then it lets us come off the fight and get into how we can work together. And that's, you got to get there. If you can't get there, and there are times when you can't, because if you've got a party who's not in it for the right reasons, if somebody's truly not in it for the best interest of a child, you can't do anything with that. But when you have people who really truly want to do what's best for a child and get in there and like, okay, let's really do this, you can almost always make it work if they all have the same end goal.
and so I don't want to put my head in the sand and say, well, every parent wants the best for their kids, because unfortunately, that's not the case. In your experience, what do you see a lot of parents who don't want the best for their kids and that are just selfish and looking out for themselves, or is that a smaller percentage?
A lot of it is that people get so caught up in their own trauma and whatever the trauma is. It doesn't have to be a huge trauma. It can be a little trauma. It can be what I call relationship trauma. Yeah, every broken up couple has some form of relationship trauma. It's there, whatever caused you to break up. And there are some people who have not done the work to resolve that trauma. And so if you're still in the process of I've been wounded, I've been hurt, this person, harmed me, is still wanting to harm me, and you can't get beyond that, then it's hard to, even if you want to put the kids first, it's hard to do that because you're still so busy protecting yourself. And so you've got to be able to release some of that, the harm and the fear that goes with it. You've got to release that fear of, oh, I'm going to be hurt, I'm going to lose, I'm going to be wounded, to be able to then look at and protect your child and do what's best for your child. So sometimes we have to get, we have to get other people involved. Therapists have to get involved and work with the parties individually to help them resolve those issues so that they can come back to the table in a positive place for themselves.
Okay, and so that's not, someone who doesn't care about the well-being of their kids. That's just someone who's overwhelmed with their own emotions that they can't see the best case scenario, right? And so if, when people are getting divorced, when they're breaking up, it's very easy to say, well, the other person is unreasonable. They don't care about the kids. They don't, right? And so I'm trying to see, when is it that even if we think the other person is not going to be good for mediation and co-parenting, versus when they really don't care and are not, like, how can people decipher that? Or should they just come to you anyways? And then you can see and basically say, okay, we need to work on this. And I can see that we could resolve it. We could at least come to some terms because of asking that why, right? And getting to that underlying issue. And when should people just say, no, this is not going to work out. I'm not going to continue to waste my time. And let me just go to the judge and have the judge decide.
I will say that the mediation and co-parenting processes work. Not 100% of the time, because again, they can't. Sometimes people just are not able to do it. I've had cases where the parties were court ordered into it. They didn't have a choice. They had to come. They were not happy that they were there. I do everything on Zoom, so I do everything virtually. Thank goodness. And so there have been several cases where I have had to, we talk about the rules ahead of time. There's no speaking over each other. There's no cursing at each other. We have to be respectful. Yeah, the standard good people rules. And there have been so many times when I've just had to push the mute button and say, okay. And I just kind of sit back and I let them yell at each other. So, and they can't hear each other and I can't hear them. I let them wait till they calm down. Then I will ask them to unmute themselves and we'll see if we can start again. If they can't calm down, I will mute them again, tell them that we're going to reschedule. We're just, we're going to take a breath. This is not getting us anywhere. I'll send them an email. We'll reschedule. And I end the session, because it doesn't help if all we're doing is yelling at each other. It gets them amped up and it gets them to the point where they can't settle down at that point. So I've had a couple of cases that were so bad at the beginning, and both parties said, this is never going to work. They're never going to change. We're never going to agree. I don't know why we have to go through this. And now in both of those cases, I have sent motions into the court asking that they be released, that we're done, because they reach out to each other first. They don't automatically listen to their kids and say, go to the other parent and say, well, you did such and such and such. Whoa. They're like, hey, listen, Susie said this and it didn't make sense to me. Can you tell me what really happened? Which is what parents need to do. And they're at that point now because we went through the process and we worked through it. So I don't think anybody should ever say this will never work for us, because I've seen some real nasty ones work out beautifully. And so it's just, you got to try it and go to, it doesn't have to be me, certainly. But if you've got a case, go to a parenting coordinator, go to a mediator. They'll let you know if it's not going to work, but give it a try. If you really are looking at what's best for the family, that's really a great place to start.
And what's best for your pocket, right?
Well, that too. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I tell people that all the time, like, look, I know I don't have the money to keep doing this. I said, look, I get it. I know this is not an inexpensive process, but stop and think about what it would be like if you took these issues to the court. How long does it take? How much money does it take? So even though you don't want to be doing this, you certainly don't want to be doing that. And so they're like, oh, okay, we'll keep trying. And then a lot of times we work it out, resolve it, and they don't go back to court.
And it's all relative, right? If they can work it
Absolutely.
by themselves, it's cheaper than
Sure.
going to a mediator or parenting coordinator. But
Mhm.
if they can't, going to the mediator or parenting coordinator is cheaper than going to court and going to the
Yep.
judge.
Yep.
So it's all relative. And it's funny because my next question is, what is the biggest problem you see in your industry and how are you solving that? And I think we've just kind of talked about the biggest problem. Is there
Yeah.
something else?
The one thing too that still is, it just breaks my heart, is that there really are still lawyers out there who are in it for the money and the dog and pony show. And they can't even have civil conversations with the other attorneys. Everything has to be nasty. Everything has to be a fight. Everything has to be a 3-page letter so they can bill their client for it. And when you have those lawyers who are not, they're not looking for the best interest of their client. They're not. And so they put on this big show and the client thinks, oh, I've got this lawyer who's a real badass, and oh, look at this, and I'm going to win, win, win. And they encourage that win, win, win. Okay, you might win, 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 but did you really win in the end? In the long run, what have you won? And so there are still people in the industry who are not very civil lawyers who cause more problems than they help. I think, a lot of the work that I do with bar associations, we really try to reach out to a lot of the attorneys. We talk a lot about civility in the law, and it is so important, not just for lawyers' mental health, but it's important for that, but it's so important for the clients, because you're not doing a service for your clients when you're doing that. You're actually doing a real disservice for your client when you're putting on that bravado and fighting over every single thing. So that's, unfortunately, that is still out there. The reasons why lawyers got bad names originally, unfortunately, they got still some of them, but it's getting better, and that's what we continue to work on, trying to work on that civility in the profession, because it helps everybody.
And that's funny that you said that because I really believe people are people are people, right? It doesn't matter if you're an attorney, if you're a doctor, if you're a janitor, if whatever you are, if you are the type of person who's more worried about lining your own pocket than helping other people, you're going to be that no matter what profession you are, right?
Absolutely.
And every profession has those, proverbial rotten eggs,
Yeah.
and so it's not limited to the law,
uh,
it's just the people. And so what advice would you give someone who is getting a divorce, breaking up? They are vulnerable because they're very overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with emotions. They're overwhelmed with the changes. They're overwhelmed with the kids, and so they're just trying to find someone to help them. Right. And they might just cling to the first attorney that they find, the first person who says, we're going to win. I'm going to heal that wound, right, without saying those exact words. But what kind of advice would you give them about finding an attorney who's actually going to help them?
the first thing that I would tell somebody, even before seeing an attorney, is get a notebook and a pen and start writing down. Just start, writing everything you can think of this is what's going to change, and this is what I need help navigating, or this is what I'm going to need to live, or this is what I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Write it all down. Get it all in there. And then, make your sub columns and your headings and all the little pieces of each thing. So write as much as you can for yourself. And then start doing the research also about, those things. Do you have to leave? You're going to have to get an apartment, or you have to buy a house. What are the prices? How are you going to afford it? Start doing some of that yourself, because the lawyer can't do everything, and you don't want them to, because you don't want to be paying somebody to do things you can do yourself. So start doing that. One of the things I tell people is research, 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 because there's going to come a time when all of a sudden you got to make a decision right now. And if you make a decision without having researched the options, you're not going to likely make a very good decision. So you always want to be continuing to research so you know what your options are before those decisions have to be made. Then when you've got your list and you know what it is you got to work on, then go to, find an attorney and talk to people. Don't just find somebody online. Talk to people. What was your attorney like? Do you know somebody you recommend? Might not be your attorney. It might be the attorney that was on the other side. I mean, but talk about it. This is what I'm looking for. I need someone warm and fuzzy, or I got this. I don't need somebody warm and fuzzy. I need someone who's going to listen to me and not run over me. And then start going and seeing attorneys, and see which attorneys let you talk, or which attorneys tell you how it's going to be. And then decide what's best for you. I find most of the time it's best for an attorney who's going to let you talk and listen to you. But some people just want to be, I don't want to do anything, just take care of it. And so some people need that. I always, when I would have people come into my office back when I did litigation, I would hand them the tissues and say, okay, you get to cry now. And then we're not going to cry anymore after that. And you're going to be surprised when we get to the end of this that you sat and cried the first day, because we're going to get through it and you're not going to be crying. And it's okay. Now let's talk about this and let's get through it. But you've got to find your power. I need you to step up and tell me, this is not my case. This is your case. You need to make the decisions, and I'm here to help you with that. And so I still think that's an important thing for people to be with an attorney who helps them find their own power and helps them make decisions, and doesn't make decisions for them and tell them what they're going to do. And, so it's just go find people and see if you resonate with them. And if you're not happy with your attorney from the start, do not stay there.
And that's right. Empowering yourself. At the end of the day, you are the only person who is responsible for your life and what happens, right? And so researching, writing down, what are those things that are overwhelming? What are the things that's the first step to gaining back that control, to gaining back that confidence, to stopping all of the overwhelm and everything coming at you, right? That's great advice. Thank you so much for that. This is a business podcast, so now we have to go back. Although I'm sorry, I kind of veered off because I think this is fascinating, and I think people need to know these things and what options they have. But going back to the business aspects of it, what makes you unique as a business owner, as a mediator, as a parental control professional? So talk to, or parenting coordinator professional, sorry. Tell me a little bit about what makes you unique as a business person, and how you help people and how you run your business.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't won the lottery yet. So I still do have to charge people for that, but I also understand that not everybody can just whip out a huge check and write a huge check. So I do work, payment plans and help people, and I look at all that. But one of the things for me that fits into my life is that because I have family here, because family is so important, as you talked about, I followed my daughter. I now have a 4-year-old granddaughter and a 1.5-year-old granddaughter. They are over here. We're 8 houses down, so we're on this one street. We're taking over, but because we're so close, they're here all the time. So I don't sit down at my computer and work 9 to 5. I worked a lot yesterday because the kids were here for a little while, but then they went home and I kept working. But I take a lot of time off during the day and play with the kids, or we go places, or we do things. And my daughter's a stay-at-home mom, so we're together a lot. But I also think it's very helpful for people that I do a lot of my parenting coordination sessions and mediations and things in the evenings, I'll even do a mediation on the weekends sometimes if people want that, because again, I understand they've got to keep working. They have lives, they have jobs, they have things. And so I do I do things on off hours and odd hours, and it works for my schedule, but it really is a benefit to the people I'm working with, so they're not having to take time off to deal with a lot of this stuff. So um, I try to do that too. I do sliding scale fees so that if people really are truly low income, I'm not charging them the same fees as I'm charging the doctors. So we just try to work with people within their means, but still understanding, my electric bill has to be paid also.
But and I love that because I talk to clients all the time and business owners and tell them they need to align their business with themselves, right? Your business is
Yeah.
there to serve you, not the other way around. And so by you aligning your business with your needs, you're actually able to serve more people with what they need, which
Right.
is a flexible schedule, right?
Yeah.
So that is fantastic. Um, what are some, and you had relocated. So what are some of the challenges that you have faced either doing business before relocating or when you relocated that you have overcome, and how have you overcome them? Because I want our listeners to kind of see, what are some of the things they might be facing, how they can also overcome them.
So when I was in Virginia, so Virginia's got a whole different scheme of things. That Virginia has state money, money in the state budget to pay for guardians ad litem for most of the kid cases. There are some where they don't pay, but mostly guardians ad litem get paid by the state. And so, because of that, it's the judges who appoint, and then everything gets processed through the court system. So, if you work in a certain locale, I worked in this one particular county most of the time, they had 5 juvenile court judges. And so, that's where I was most of the time with my practice. And so, I had to get to know, and this is the last 10 years that I was there. I was in Norfolk, Virginia on the coast for 20 years and back in Richmond for 10. So, when I was in Richmond, I had to learn 5 judges. They had to get to know me. Okay, I learned them. They realized my philosophies. They knew my work ethic, my background. Um, they knew my history, and so I began getting appointed to cases. And then I would do a good job, and then I would get more cases, and I get referrals and more cases being appointed. And so when I moved down here, it's like, okay, I'll go and meet some judges. Well, I got down here. Florida does not have state money for that. Everything is private pay. So the judges are like, hey, look, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to pick, if I don't have to. So the judges will tell the parties, you go find a parenting coordinator. You go agree on a guardian ad litem. You decide on your mediator. So it wasn't so much as get to know 5 judges, it's get to know 3,000 family law attorneys. And I moved down here and I did not know anyone. And so, boy, oh boy, when people talk about networking, you have to. I was never in sales. I'm not good at sales. I don't want to market. I don't want to market myself. I don't want to do that. But I've discovered that it's got to be done. You got to find your niche, and you got to believe in yourself, and you got to do it, and you find a way to do it. And so I joined, local bar associations. I've become very active in the family law section of the state bar. So I do things all around the state with that section. And I found not only have I met people that way, but I really like it because I realize I'm making a difference for the industry as a whole. And so that's been great as well. I never did that in Virginia, and so I'm a part of that here, and I love it. And just, as you get to know people, judges know me, lawyers know me, I get referrals from other mediators. I mean, it's just a matter of getting out there and learning people, and it takes a while. I mean, when you start a new business, something like that, you can count on at least 2 years before it's really gonna be able to do anything. And it was about 2 years before it really got rolling. And so now I just look at it and go, okay. And it's still you're still having to find cases every day and meet new people, but I'm starting to enjoy the process of meeting new people. Um, some have been just so incredibly welcoming, and I have really enjoyed that. Some are like, yeah, I met you, okay, it's fine. but there have been a lot of people who I've met who I've just like, I needed to do this. I really needed to meet you and have you in my life. And so it has changed how I deal with people, and I have had to grow and get out of my shell a little bit, and it's been fabulous. It's been good for me.
But see, I always think it is so interesting that everybody's idea of sales is this like manipulative, icky, like you have to buy from me, come here, right? When sales really has nothing to do with that, or doesn't have to have anything to do with that. Like you said, you go, you meet people, right? If you're genuinely interested in people and building relationships, that sales will come, because once people know who you are and how you operate, then they either align with you and they want to work with you and use your services, or they don't align, in which case you don't want to work with them anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
it's hard to brag. It's hard to promote. It's hard to say, hey, I'm really good at this. So it was important for me to find ways just to have conversations and to be able to explain what I do and what I've been doing without pushing that, and just having that be just part of kind of the conversation and what we're talking about. And so it's I've gotten there.
okay. So the biggest challenge is finding those clients, referral partners, the business, and you have overcome that by making connections,
Yep. Yeah.
networking, being interested in other people, and making friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That is wonderful. And so before I ask my last question, what is the best way for people to contact you if they'd like to work with you?
My I do have a website, and it's just kellybstclair.com. My email is great. There's an email address on my website, or you can just click the little link on my website and send an email. My email is kbstclairlaw@gmail.com. I'm happy to have anybody email me at any time. Comes to my phone. I sometimes respond on weekends, sometimes respond at 2 o'clock in the morning. You never know when I'm going to be looking at things. And I'm always happy to chat with people. And if I can't help somebody, I'm going to tell them right away, I'm not the fit for you. You don't need to spend your money with me right now. Here, go try this. So I would rather people um, appreciate what I do and know that I'm looking out for them and not just trying to make a buck off them, so that then later maybe they'll refer somebody else to me down the road, or maybe when they do need me, they'll come back. Because again, it's still all about helping people, not just making money. And it has to be that way for me.
Okay. And so if you could only give one piece of advice to a business owner, what would that be?
Don't chase the money, chase the good, chase the benefit, chase whatever it is you're providing, and not even chase it, but just provide your product, provide your service, whatever it is that you're doing. Be proud of what it is that you're doing, that you've made, that you created, and then let the money follow that and come to you. But if you're chasing the money, it's going to keep running.
Where your energy goes, or where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all of the wonderful information. And I guess if anybody needs Kelly's information, it will also be down in the chat. And we will see you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.